Chapter 11. Not only the scholar on the stage, but even the other prisoners under the stage also shuddered when they heard Yang Chen's words. The crippling immortal absolute demon hand could almost be said to be the most vicious punishment in the immortal world. After being hit by it, even a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal would feel a combination of numbness and itchiness all over the body. When the numbness and itchiness reached the extreme, it could even make a person disregard all face and become naked. What was especially vicious was that this crippling immortal absolute demon hand not only allowed the caster to control it at will, but also had a very important function, that was to block the cultivation of the person who was hit by it. After being hit by the crippling immortal absolute demon hand, the cultivation could only be controlled by the caster. Unless there was someone who was several times stronger than the caster who could find the method to control the caster and relieve the pain of the person who was hit by it, it would be like maggots in the tarsal bone, following the person for life. Yang Chen offended the Taishanman in the mortal world under Yang Lan's frame-up. He didn't expect that the Taishanman was only a branch of the mysterious Heaven sect in the immortal world, and the mysterious Heaven sect was the main force of the rebellion in the heavenly court. After ascending, Yang Chen was targeted by others. In order to teach others a lesson, the master of the mysterious Heaven sect used the crippling immortal absolute demon hand on Yang Chen's body. He deliberately made Yang Chen a typical example of disobedience. Every month, the restriction on Yang Chen's body would activate once, and each time, Yang Chen would suffer unbearable pain and lose face in the immortal world. In order to leave a deep impression on others, Yang Chen's cultivation was not controlled, and he even cultivated to the level of a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. The crippling immortal absolute demon hand belonged to the series of demonic techniques that were robbed. It was too sinister, and only a few sect masters of the big sects were qualified to cultivate it. It was passed down by word of mouth, and no one else knew about it. It was just that after using this technique many times, Yang Chen also learned some of it. Who the hell are you? How do you know about the crippling immortal absolute demon hand? The scholar was shocked and asked almost desperately. There was no need for Yang Chen to intimidate someone who was about to die. I've said it before. You're just a mortal who controls the immortal beheading stage. As he spoke, the saber in his hand suddenly turned into a thin needle. Senior, we have no enmity between us in the past, but you had evil intentions in your heart first. I will repay you with the crippled immortal extinguishing devil hand. I will accept this karma. Since he didn't kill anyone, Yang Chen didn't say anything. After saying this, Yang Chen had already made his move. The needle flickered a few times on the scholar's body, and the middle-aged scholar could not help but moan. The numbness and itchiness were unbearable. Under normal circumstances, the scholar might have been able to scratch the itch with his hands. But right now, he was in the immortal slaying plateau, and his cultivation base had been crippled. His body was bound tightly, and there was no way he could scratch. The poor scholar could only keep twisting his body, but he did not have any means to alleviate the pain. At this time, even if he lost all his face, he was willing to have someone to help him scratch. Unfortunately, Yang Chen did not have such good intentions. The immortal slaying plateau flashed slightly, and the middle-aged scholar was hung outside the immortal slaying plateau. Yang Chen's voice came from the platform. Senior will be the last to be beheaded. Senior can only bear with the time it takes to behead thousands of people. The immortals who entered the immortal slaying plateau did not expect that Yang Chen would have such a move. They also knew that the scholar was in a hopeless situation. They wanted to see Yang Chen make a fool of himself, but they did not expect that Yang Chen would see through it. Thinking about the herb garden just now, Yang Chen also knew that these immortals found it difficult to hide anything from the executioner on the immortal slaying plateau. Even if they were immortals, they would not be willing to be humiliated before they died, but Yang Chen's approach made them unable to give birth to any resentment. Yang Chen was only a mortal, and could not control the changes in the heavenly court. Their tragedy, as Yang Chen said, was that every wrong had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. It could not be blamed on Yang Chen. As for the middle-aged scholar, Yang Chen also made it clear that he plotted to kill Yang Chen first, so Yang Chen did not mind accepting this karma. Everyone had killed countless people on their path of cultivation. Perhaps apart from the middle-aged scholar, no one felt that such an action was inappropriate. Moreover, Yang Qin did not force them. Those who were willing left some wishes, and those who were unwilling, Yang Qin happily sent them on their way. He did not make things difficult for them, and no one had anything more to say. People who were about to die, let alone immortals who had lived for an unknown amount of time and seen many births, old age, sickness, and death, could see through everything. If they wanted to live, they just had to lower their heads before entering the immortal slaying plateau. Since they had already been sent in, it meant that they had already made a choice and had already seen through life and death. Yang Chen's little action, who would see it in his eyes? Yang Chen also guessed this, so he was so unscrupulous. No matter how open-minded one was about life and death, there would always be a little regret. This was the power of Yang Chen's words. What unfulfilled wishes do you have? Maybe I can help you fulfill them. The direct result of this sentence was that at least half of the prisoners who were awaiting execution gave Yang Chen their requests and promised him benefits. My sect is declining. If there is a chance, please take care of it. I still have a lost 10th water true tactic here. If combined with the 10th water Yuan Qi, the power will be great. Please help me pass it down. I know there is a spirit stone vein in a steep valley. It is inaccessible and has many monsters. I guess no one has found it. I will give it to you. Before my ascension, I refined dozens of flying swords for the younger generation, but the younger generation disciples who ascended later never found them. You can go and get them. Those flying swords are also my painstaking efforts before my ascension. Don't let them be covered in dust. Yang Chen's mind was like a boiling pot, constantly engraving the last wishes and benefits of these immortals in it. Some things, such as taking care of the younger generation, Yang Chen directly agreed. Some of the things that needed to be killed, Yang Chen would first think about it. If there was an intersection with his enemies, Yang Chen would agree. If there was no intersection, Yang Chen would not easily agree. The more it was like this, the more it seemed that Yang Chen would keep his promise. Those who originally wanted him to kill, seeing that he shook his head and did not agree, and that they were about to die, the things left behind were also in vain. They simply made up their minds and directly said the benefits that they originally wanted to promise. They did not want any conditions and just went to their deaths. Every time before killing, Yang Chen always said the professional phrase, "Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor." After beheading the head, he would also silently use the demonic power to absorb the last trace of these immortals' gifts into his own body. This time, the speed was very fast. Yang Chen had no concept of time here, but he did not stop along the way. By the time he beheaded everyone, including the scholar who had been tortured by him with the crippled immortal absolute demonic hand, half of the beheading immortal platform had turned bright red. Chapter 12. Although he still didn't have any magic power in his body, Yang Chen could sense that his body was undergoing earth-shattering changes. It was as if something was sprouting inside him, growing strong and healthy. Taking a quick look at his merit points, Yang Chen discovered that they'd already exceeded 1 billion. For Yang Chen, this was an additional benefit. Although he couldn't use them in the mortal world for now, once he ascended to the spirit realm, they were good stuff that he couldn't even beg for. Somewhere in the immortal world, the official who'd led Yang Chen into the immortal execution platform seemed to sense something and exclaimed in surprise, "So fast." After saying that, he immediately realized that he had lost his composure. He waved his hand behind him and said, "Send another batch in." Yang Chen was drinking water to rest, and suddenly discovered that the immortal executioner platform, which had just been empty, suddenly became full again, and the immortals were sent in. Having absorbed the life essence of more than 1,000 immortals, Yang Chen didn't seem to feel tired at all. However, he still slowly drank the bowl of water in his hand at his own pace. Only then did he step onto the immortal executioner's platform with steady footsteps. Slay, mountain god, slay, celestial soldier, slay, strong fit, palace maid, slay, boy slay. Before you die, senior, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? Perhaps I can help you fulfill them. The same words came out of Yang Chen's mouth, but with a hint of killing intent. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. You and I have no past grievances, and this is my duty. Please forgive me. Xianxia didn't know how many times he'd repeated the executioner's words, wiping out all the prisoners in one breath. Hiss. Outside the immortal beheading stage, after the executioner discovered that the immortal beheading stage had once again been emptied, he almost sucked in a breath of cold air. More than 2,000 immortals were killed by Xianxia in such a short period of time. Even if it was him, facing so many immortals, he might not be able to make such a ruthless move. One had to know that when a mortal faced so many immortals, they were still immortals. They were even nobler than their emperors. Yet, he could kill them without hesitation. This person was simply a born executioner. Another batch of people was sent in. Xianxia now knew the pattern. Each batch sent in was 1,200, and after killing them, another batch would be sent in. Just these low-level immortals alone were enough for Xianxia to kill more than 10 batches, close to 20,000. The Heavenly Court's rebellion was no small matter. Although the rebels were unwilling, they didn't dare kill too much in the midst of the rebellion, lest they couldn't turn back. Many people would capture anyone they could from the old Heavenly Court. That was why Xianxia had to kill so many immortals. A faint blood color had appeared around Xianxia's body. That was the thick blood energy that came from killing too many people. Although Xianxia had already absorbed their life essence, the violent surge of killing intent from immortal execution was something that couldn't be eliminated in a short time. Toward the end, those immortals who had lost all their energy would even tremble slightly in front of Xianxia. They didn't even dare look Xianxia in the eye. They seemed to feel a kind of reverence for Xianxia from the bottom of their hearts. After killing this batch, after a short rest, Xianxia finally saw a different death row prisoner. From their clothes, it could be seen that these immortals' ranks had greatly increased. 36 celestial stars, 72 earth fiends, 28 constellations, 12 stars. Xianxia also had to sigh. These gods, who were originally high and mighty, had now become prisoners under his feet. Before you die, Senior, if you have any unfulfilled wishes, maybe I can help you complete one or two. Xianxia, who was surrounded by red light, said these words, which really made these immortals shudder. How many immortals had to be killed to produce a murderous aura that would make the immortals of such a level afraid? Unexpectedly, the higher the level of the immortal, the more they valued their own orthodoxy. Xianxia's words seemed to give them the last chance. This old man has a secret, great sun true solution. You help me find a suitable disciple and pass it on. I have a hidden immortal's cave in the mortal world, just in Blue Vault Mountain. The restriction method is like this. Before ascending, there is a vein of first wood true essence in this old man's cave. You can go and get it when you have time. With the first wood true secret art, it will have an incredible effect. However, you have to help this old man find this old man's disciple in the spiritual world and pass on this universe limitless sword formation. If you can't find it, it's a bargain for you. This old man has a Yundan scripture. Here, you find a fated person to pass it on. I have a 12 stars C suppression formation. For 12 people, I will give it to you to suppress the immortal's cave. Heavenly cycle constellation formation. Don't ask about the power, it is very powerful. I will give it to you. Celestial spirit treasure refining secret art. You can refine your magic weapon. I will give it to you, don't lose it. Earth fiend sacrificial formation secret art. If you are lucky, you can sacrifice your magic weapon to 72 formations, pass it on. In a series, almost all of them were cultivation methods, formations, pill scriptures, refining techniques, and even lost immortal's cave. Xianxia couldn't believe that these people had so many good things. And judging from some of the things he found in his memory, these things were all true. In particular, the 12 stars C suppression formation, it was simply a heaven-defying formation that directly upgraded the blessed cave to a level. He killed dozens of immortals in a row. He didn't feel anything when he killed the heavenly generals. When he killed 12 Xianxia, he accidentally discovered that his merit value had begun to increase rapidly in units of hundreds of millions. By the end of the 28 constellations, The merit value had broken through 1 trillion. What made Yang Chen even more shocked was that the life essence of the 28 constellations seemed to have different yin and yang attributes of the 5 elements. As soon as it was absorbed into the body, he could feel the illusion of something in the body taking root and growing into a towering tree, which was extremely wonderful. After a long time, Yang Chen finished absorbing and opened his eyes, but what he saw was a monster. They covered almost every category. Erlang Shen's howling celestial dog, South Pole immortal Wuxia deer, immortal cranes, Chang Yi's jade rabbit, for odd beasts, flying tigers, turtles, snakes, and even a few flood dragons. Almost everything that Yang Chen could think of was already here. These were either the immortals' pets or mounts. My master has a longevity peach. I have one too. The moment the South Pole immortal Wuxia deer spoke, Yang Chen jumped in fright. I raised that peach in a certain immortal's cave in the spirit realm a long time ago. If you have time, go get it and have a taste, it's not bad. Chapter 13. The peach in the hands of the South Pole immortal hermit was comparable to the Queen Mother's best immortality peach. Hearing the cicadeer's words, Yang Chen's saliva almost flowed out. You're still reluctant to eat that peach in the spiritual realm? How stingy! A disdainful voice came from the side. It was the crane that was almost inseparable from the cicadeer. It was also beside the South Pole immortal hermit, but the moment it opened its mouth, it mocked. I've eaten that peach a long time ago. The peach pit is still in the mortal realm. I wonder if it has bloomed and borne fruit. Yang Chen stood at the side and listened to the two bickering without saying anything. Anyway, he was the one who got the benefits, so he let them bicker before they died. That peach tree should be growing in the mortal realm. The crane shouted at Yang Chen, then made a request, go take a look if you have the chance. Now, kill both of us together. Woof. The celestial hound barked and spoke in human language. I still have a drop of blood in the mortal realm. If a beast can fuse with it, it might be able to activate the ancient beast bloodline. The blood essence is it. There's a mystical power called the beast taming technique. It's a cultivation technique of the demon race. It's 100 times more brilliant than those from the school of beast taming. However, the requirements are harsh. Let's see if you have this opportunity. The green bull also spoke in human language. These demon gods were different from the previous 28 constellations. They were all mounts or pets of the famous exalted immortals of the celestial heavens. They had always maintained their original forms and did not transform into human forms. However, these demon gods were abnormally powerful. They were not inferior to their kind that had become orthodox gods. In fact, they were even stronger. As he was killing them, Yang Chen had no time to care about other things. However, after killing a few, he accidentally glanced at his merit points and was shocked. These demon gods had directly brought Yang Chen tens of trillions of merit points. In the great rebellion of the celestial heavens, many people were hoping to get lucky. They captured all these gods if they could, but all of them ended up benefiting Yang Chen. At this moment, Yang Chen's body was already enveloped in a thick layer of blood light. From afar, it looked like a blood cloud was surrounding Yang Chen. If a cultivator were to see such a scene, their first reaction would be to think that this was definitely an old devil with a heavy sin of killing, and not a mortal who had not cultivated any martial arts and did not have any magical power. All the demon gods were killed. Even if Yang Chen didn't speak, the killing intent on his body was also penetrating. A heavenly lord who had just been sent to the immortal executioner stage was directly deterred by Yang Chen's murderous aura and died on the spot. The injury is so heavy, and you can still hold on until now. Yang Chen looked at the Lord of Heaven who had died before he could do anything, and couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. This time, the level of those who entered the immortal slaying platform was much higher. Heavenly Lord, Heavenly General, 8 immortals of the upper cave, 7 stars of the Big Dipper, 6 Ding and 6 Jia, 5 virtue star lords, the 3 stars of fortune, and longevity, martial canopy, Xianxia, mighty god, and so on. However, unlike the previous gods, almost all of these high-level immortals were seriously injured. Their faces were full of unwillingness but helplessness. Firelord, an extremely rich fire essence rushed straight into Yang Chen's lungs. Waterlord, Waterlord, slush. Woodlord, Woodlord, slush. Earthlord, Earthlord, slush. Goldlord, Goldlord, tush. Just killing the 5 virtue star lords, Yang Chen felt that the attributes of the 5 elements in his body had skyrocketed, not to mention the feeling of fullness brought by the 28 constellations before. Killing until now, even if Yang Chen had been trying to balance his mind, he could not help but feel a little tired. The will of the immortal slaying platform in his body was still trying to vent its killing intent, but under the control of Yang Chen, it could not make too much waves. It could only follow Yang Chen's arrangements and obey. In the small room to rest, Yang Chen slept regardless of everything, and then tried hard to calm down. Only then did the strong killing intent on his body slowly ease. Although the red clouds were still tumbling, they were no longer as frightening as before. After resting for a while, Yang Chen went up to the immortal slaying platform again. From the mouths of the big figures, there was almost no complaint. Victory was victory, defeat was defeat. He had tried his best and ended up like this, but there was not so much unwillingness and disappointment, it was extraordinary. I have a medicine-nourishing gourd, it is in the lower world. I have condensed a pure yang sword qi all my life, and I have never been distracted. Its power is endless. If you are interested, you can also practice it. I have a set of formation flags for you before I die, and I will give them to you. Yang Chen received these news calmly, and calmly said his own words. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. One by one, he beheaded these immortals that he was familiar with. If it was the previous gods, Yang Chen could indeed make a move without any waves in his heart, but these immortals were not the same thing at all. In fact, for every immortal, Yang Chen condensed a killing intent in his heart to be able to achieve such calmness. Every time he beheaded a superior immortal, Yang Chen could almost feel the great changes in his body, which was more terrible than killing tens of thousands of people. As for the merit value, Yang Chen no longer paid attention to it. It had already exceeded 1,000 trillion, and was even hitting the Jing unit. It wouldn't take more than a few people to break through the Jing 10,000 trillion mark. Outside the immortal beheading stage, a few immortal soldiers who were originally guarding the immortal beheading stage felt the intense killing intent from the immortal beheading stage and couldn't help but tremble. They were just ordinary heavenly soldiers. How could they withstand such terrifying killing intent? If it wasn't for their fate, who knew where they would have fled to? Even the executioner couldn't help but tremble. Looking at the immortal soldiers trembling, he couldn't help but say, "This immortal beheading stage is the only immortal artifact that can connect the mortal world and the heavenly court. The heavenly court can only enter and not leave, and the mortal world can enter but not leave. We were ordered to choose the executioner with the dream reversal technique, and we have already completed the new emperor's order. The immortal beheading stage is showing its power, we should retreat." With that, he was the first to retreat. The immortal soldiers looked at each other and scrambled to escape from the vicinity of the immortal beheading stage. They only stopped when they could no longer feel the killing intent from the immortal beheading stage. An immortal soldier immediately asked, "Why is the immortal beheading stage like this? It wasn't like this in the past." How many immortals has the immortal beheading stage killed in the past? In all these years, the immortal world has only killed a few dozen. This time, it killed tens of thousands. With so much immortal flesh and blood, let alone the immortal beheading stage, even a mortal world weapon would become a spirit after being stained with so much immortal flesh and blood, right? The executioner who was the first to retreat looked towards the immortal beheading stage and explained with lingering fear. Chapter 14. The treasures of my dragon palace also have a treasure vault in the mortal world. I don't want to leave these things to the traitor Dragon King. You're lucky. The treasure vault is in. Before the Dragon King of the East Sea was beheaded, he was very unwilling, but he had the mentality of not letting those traitors have an easy time even if he couldn't get it. Thus, he let Yang Chen take advantage of it. The clairvoyant, the clairaudient, the god of thunder, the mother of lightning, the count of wind, the lord of rain, the 4 heavenly kings, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li, the 5 directions Yeti, the azure dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, the black tortoise, the moon lord, the sun lord, the martial might star lord, Chang'e, and the 9 heavens mystic fairy. When facing Chang'e and the 9 heavens profound maiden, Yang Chen did not seem to care about them at all. He only saw them as 2 prisoners waiting to be executed. He swung his saber down. Before she died, Chang'e left behind a copy of the Beauty Retaining Heart Sutra. In addition to the Beauty Retaining Heart Sutra, there were also many recipes for the appearance pill, from the mortal realm to the spiritual realm to the immortal realm. The most terrifying thing was that not only could this youth retaining technique preserve one's appearance, but it could also allow the cultivator to adjust their appearance and figure according to their will. It was simply the ultimate treasure that all female cultivators yearned for. Taibai Jinxing, Senior, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? Perhaps I can help you complete them. By then, Yang Chen had already killed off the group of exalted immortals. Once again he saw gold immortals. In front of him was Taibai Jinxing, Li Changing. My body is dead and my Tao is gone. What's there to linger about? Unfortunately, His Majesty was powerless to reverse the situation. This old man has a 7th metal true secret art here. There is a vein of 7th metal Yuan Qi in the lower realm. Make good use of it. When Taibai Jinxing also fell under Yang Chen's knife, Yang Chen finally discovered a point, that was, those who were powerful and particularly good at fighting, such as Neza, Erlang Shen, Yang Jian, Lu Dongbin, and the like, were basically impossible to capture alive. Those who were captured alive were those who were half above and half below. Naturally, the proportion of people in high positions was even higher. Therefore, when Yang Chen saw old Lord Taishang, he wasn't surprised at all. After killing so many righteous gods of the heavenly court, Yang Chen no longer had any fear in his heart. Even if he were to face the Jade Emperor, there probably wouldn't be anything that could shock him. It seemed like old Lord Taishang did not receive too much criticism. His expression was very calm. When he saw Yang Chen, he first felt a subconscious fear. There were too many killing gods, and the blood cloud around them was already so thick that it couldn't be dispersed. It naturally emitted a terrifying aura, and even a righteous god like Taishang Laojun couldn't resist it. However, Taishang Laojun was Taishang Laojun after all. It was only a split second of fear before he returned to normal. Opening his eyes, he seemed to pierce through the blood clouds and see Yang Chen's true body. After staring fixedly at Yang Chen for a while, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he eagerly asked, 5 elemental spirit roots, Yin and Yang complete, rarely seen in 10,000 years. You are the best immortal cultivator I have ever seen, and we actually had such fate before death. Are you interested in becoming my last disciple? Become the disciple of old Lord Taishang? Although it was before death, anyone could think of the huge opportunity contained in it. However, in Yang Chen's mind, the desperate and beautiful eyes of his previous master suddenly flashed, and the moment of happiness when she reached out and handed him the bright ray sword. Just these 2 images made Yang Chen's slightly shaken heart quickly stop swaying, and he made a decision. Thank you, old lord, for your kindness, but I already have my master in this life, and I won't worship anyone else as my master. When Yang Chen calmly said this sentence, his heart seemed to have gotten rid of some shackles, and he was free and unrestrained. Yang Chen knew that in the future, there would be no temptation worse than the temptation of being accepted as the last disciple of old Lord Taishang. Unknowingly, Yang Chen had received a spiritual cleansing. He had not yet begun to cultivate, and the cultivation of his state of mind was already better than when he was alive. Sigh, in the end, it's still not faded. Old Lord Taishang sighed slightly, as if he could also see Yang Chen's detachment. With a sigh, his tone returned to normal. Fine, it's fate that we met before death. Although I can't accept you as a disciple, from the looks of it, you will also have to cultivate in the future. I'll give you 2 of my trump cards, you can choose for yourself. Old Lord Taishang had already heard what Yang Chen had said before, so he naturally knew what he was going to do, so he said very open-mindedly. Yang Chen did not expect that he would be able to obtain old Lord Taishang's favor. After being stunned for a moment, he was overjoyed. He stood on the spot and thought for a moment before saying, "Old Lord, I accept your kindness. In that case, I'm willing to learn Old Lord's one breath turning 3 pure ones and refining techniques. Please bestow it to me." Needless to say, one breath turning 3 pure ones refining technique was definitely the best of the best. Everything produced by Old Lord Taishang, whether it was the diamond chakram or the banana fan, yin yang gourd or the jade bottle, were all peerless immortal weapons. As for alchemy, there was no need to talk about it. Many coveted peerless pills came from the hands of Old Lord Taishan. If Yang Chen was allowed to choose, Yang Chen would naturally choose the best. However, it seemed that such a choice was a bit of a trick. Old Lord Taishang only let him choose 2, but Yang Chen actually chose 3. One breath turning 3 pure ones, it's just a mystic technique, it's called 3 pure arts. You remember it well. Your murderous aura is overflowing, but the 3 pure arts can refine the murderous intent and turn it into spiritual awareness. Maybe you will be able to use it soon. There is nothing special about this old man's refining, it's just the Qianquan Bagua furnace plus some techniques. However, if you are willing, you can cultivate the great yin and yang 5 elements. Without the Bagua furnace, you can also be better than this old man. Well, Qianquan treasure cultivation secret art. After each sacrificial refining, use this technique to sacrificial refine once. Usually use this to maintain it, the effect will be better, you remember it. After all, it's still my Dao sects business. Well, the alchemy technique is a parting gift to you. When you send me on my way later, be more agile. There is no name, just name it as you wish. However, this is just a technique, there is no elixir recipe, you can collect it yourself. After personally sending Old Lord Taishang on his way, Yang Chen couldn't tell what he felt in his heart. He remembered the 3 pure arts, Qianquan treasure cultivation secret art, taught by the Old Lord Taishang and the Old Lord pill technique, named by Yang Chen himself. Yang Chen wanted to take a break, but the new heavenly court didn't seem to give Yang Chen time to rest. The originally empty immortal beheading stage had 2 more prisoners waiting to be executed. There were only 2 prisoners waiting to be executed this time, but they were the 2 with the most distinguished status. When Yang Chen saw them, the husband and wife didn't have any bindings on them. They just stood upright and looked at Yang Chen majestically. Chapter 15. I am the Supreme Sovereign of Haotian Golden Palace, the Jade Emperor. How dare you be impolite, traitor? A man wearing an imperial robe and a crown shouted. His voice was like a clap of thunder in Yang Chen's ears. Even though Yang Chen was surrounded by a murderous aura, it didn't affect his mind at all. The woman with the phoenix crown standing beside the Jade Emperor didn't say a word. However, the sharpness in her eyes was enough to make anyone fear her majesty and kneel on the ground. I'm sorry, seniors. This is the immortal slaying platform. The immortals who enter this place only have one identity, and that is to be executed. Yang Chen faced the 2 former masters of the heavenly court, the Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother, and said calmly, I am Yang Chen, the executioner of the immortal slaying platform. At the same time, the newly appointed heavenly court merit envoy who was in charge of merits was dumbfounded when he saw a stranger whose merits suddenly skyrocketed appear at the top of the merit list. The numbers written on it were 1, 10, 100,000, 10,000, 100 million, trillion, Jing, Gai, Li, Rang, Go, Jian, Jing, Zai, Ji, Ganges, Sha. A sing only, from him, inconceivable, all the way to the boundless. The magnitude of 10 to the power of 68 was so huge that he couldn't believe his eyes. Note, 10,000, 4 to the 4th power. 100 million, 8 to the 8th power. Gai, 12 to the 12th power. Jing, 16 to the 16th power. Gai, 20 to the 20th power. Jian, 20 to the 24th power. Rang, 20 to the 28th power. Go, 30 to the 32nd power. Jian, 30 to the 36th power. Zheng, 40 to the 40th power. Load, 40 to the 44th power. g. 40 to the 48th power. A monk only, 10 to the 52nd power. A monk only, 10 to the 56th power. A monk only, 10 to the 60th power. That went to him, 10 to the 60th power. Immeasurable, 10 to the 68th power. Big number, 10 to the 72nd power. Old Lord Taishang had already achieved immeasurable merits by establishing the Dao sect. Therefore, even during the Heavenly Court's rebellion, no one dared to be rude to the Grand Supreme Elder. However, all the participating immortals knew that if Old Lord did not die, the new Heavenly Court would not be able to be rebuilt. Therefore, as soon as the new Jade Emperor ascended the throne, he beheaded the Elder's Supreme Elder. After all, there was the suspicion of deceiving one's master and destroying one's ancestors. However, the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring and had to be released. At this point, he couldn't care less about anything else. No one dared to kill the Grand Supreme Elder, but Yang Chen had it easy. The Grand Supreme Elder had immeasurable merit in the old heavenly courts. Immeasurable merit meant that the Grand Supreme Elder's merit had already reached the level of immeasurable. Naturally, killing the Grand Supreme Elder was a matter of immeasurable merit in the new heavenly courts. In an instant, Yang Chen's merit value rushed to the unit of immeasurable. This was already the longest number that could be displayed on the merit list. Just the Grand Supreme Elder alone allowed Yang Chen's merit value to surpass everyone else and appear high and mighty on the merit ranking. Moreover, the huge number made the official who was paying attention to the merit ranking silent for a long time. According to the rules of the heavenly courts, merit value could be used to exchange for many things, including all kinds of magic treasures, elixirs, cultivation techniques, pets, subordinates, official positions, cave residences, and almost anything. According to Yang Chen's current immeasurable merit value, the entire heavenly courts could be exchanged for his merit value alone. The new Jade Emperor had just taken office and was inexperienced. Even if he could gather a huge amount of merit value, he could not compare to the Dao sect's ancestor. As for the immortal artifact merit ranking, it was the same as the immortal slaying platform. It could only be used to check and exchange, but it could not be changed at will. He was a stranger that no one had ever heard of. He was neither the target of any sect's support, nor had he made any shocking contributions in this rebellion. He was also not the new Jade Emperor of the Heavenly Court. How could he be the first in merit points? At the thought that the entire Heavenly Courts could be exchanged for by a stranger who had never been heard of, even as a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal, the new merit envoy of the Heavenly Courts could not help but sweat profusely. The huge fear almost made him think that he had committed an irreparable mistake, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. There must be something wrong here. Traitor, how dare you act rashly? The Jade Emperor, or to be exact, the former Jade Emperor, shouted at Yang Chen who was walking towards him. However, he could only watch as Yang Chen walked towards him. Other than shouting, there was nothing he could do. No wonder those people wanted to rebel. Senior, what else can you do other than giving orders? A trace of contempt flashed in Yang Chen's eyes. He shook his head slightly and revealed the ferocious blade. Aren't you afraid of being consigned to eternal damnation after you attack? The Queen Mother, who was next to him, finally spoke. Her voice was as clear as the bright moon, carrying the feeling of a sovereign descending to the world. Her phoenix eyes were full of power. It was only a sentence, but it was more direct than the roar of the Jade Emperor. I am enforcing justice on behalf of heaven, and my merits are immeasurable. How can I be punished by eternal damnation? Facing the Queen Mother, Yang Chen was even more respectful than the Jade Emperor. He might even have to explain to her. As he spoke, he took out his merit ring. The huge number on it made Yang Chen fall into a momentary daze. Enforcing justice on behalf of heaven? The Queen Mother of the West also saw the long string of numbers on Yang Chen's merit ring. Her eyes were stagnant and no longer as clear as before. It was as if she had suddenly aged a lot. She murmured, "It turns out that the sky has changed. Senior, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? Maybe I can fulfill them." Yang Chen faced the two Supremes with completely different performances and said this sentence. then quietly waited for them to speak. Since it has come to this, what other wishes do I have? The Queen Mother said with a bitter face, and then restored her high and mighty majesty. Even if she was just a weak woman in the immortal beheading stage, the peerless demeanor she showed at this moment still made Yang Chen's heart admire her. Calmly, the Queen Mother tidied up her clothes. Suddenly, she smiled at Yang Chen and said, "Let me borrow your blade, and treat it as a mirror. This place is simple and crude, please forgive me." The Queen Mother's magnanimity won Yang Chen's respect. Swoosh! The blade in her hand lit up, and it appeared in front of the Queen Mother. The flat blade suddenly became bright, and it reflected the Queen Mother's beautiful face. Facing the blade, the Queen Mother of the West was like in her own jade pool. She carefully stroked her hair and adjusted the phoenix hairpin inserted in her head. Then she nodded slightly at Yang Chen and walked to the execution place of the beheading immortal platform. She looked around at the scenery around the beheading immortal platform. Then she said to Yang Chen behind her, "Executioner, do it. Be quick." Swoosh! A sharp sound was heard, and a ray of bright light, which looked like black hair, went through the Queen Mother's neck. However, it did not take anything away. The Queen Mother still stood there steadily, and she looked forward. After a while, she smiled and said, "What a fast blade. Thank you." After waving the blade, Yang Chen did not look at the result. He turned around and faced the Jade Emperor, who was originally the most powerful person in the world. He said calmly and coldly, "The Queen Mother is on her way. Senior, do you have any unfulfilled wishes? Maybe I can fulfill them." Seeing the Queen Mother of the West suddenly fall to the ground, the Jade Emperor, who was still pretending to be majestic and roaring, showed a look of panic on his face. He looked at Yang Chen and shouted, "I am the Jade Emperor, how dare you be rude?" Chapter 16. Not anymore. Yang Chen had seen how the Queen Mother of the West calmly faced her death and how the Jade Emperor lost his composure. The respect he had for the Jade Emperor disappeared without a trace. "I am the Jade Emperor. You are all traitors." Facing the threat of death, the former Jade Emperor had lost all his dignity. He waved his fists at Yang Chen hysterically. However, he just stood there and waved his fists. He did not dare to argue with Yang Chen, let alone teach Yang Chen a lesson. Every debt has a debtor. We have no grudges against each other. I am just doing my duty and following orders. Please forgive me. Yang Chen expressionlessly said the words of an executioner. Then he took a few steps forward and waved his knife. The Heavenly Court's merit envoy was shocked when he saw Yang Chen's merit value suddenly increase. Yang Chen's merit value was already at the level of immeasurable. When he slashed at the Queen Mother of the West, his merit value jumped to almost the full value shown on the merit board. 9 boundless was the largest number that could be accommodated on the merit roll. Looking at the second place on the merit board, the name of the new Jade Emperor, the Heavenly Court's merit envoy almost cried. The Heavenly Court was newly established and he had accumulated merits to rise to this position. Could it be that the Heavenly Court was in darkness because of this immortal artifact's mistake? He did not know how the merit board was ranked in the past, but he thought that the Jade Emperor must be the first. A guy who came out of nowhere, and even the merit envoy couldn't find this guy even after searching the entire Heavenly Court. How could his merit value be higher than the new Jade Emperor? If there was no problem with the merit board, then there must be a problem with him as the merit envoy. The new Jade Emperor was not a kind person. He was a powerful figure who sent all the loyal people of the old Heavenly Court to the immortal slaying platform. If the Jade Emperor knew about this, he would definitely be the immortal slaying platform's final destination. Yes, there must be a problem with the merit list rules. In a moment of desperation, the virtuous host's brain worked dozens of times faster than usual, and he immediately realized the crux of the problem. The merit board was an immortal artifact. As long as one wore the Heavenly Court symbol ring, the merit board would record the merit points. There shouldn't be any problems with it. The only problem was that the merit ranking that he had just taken over was still using the old rules. Thinking of this, the merit envoy was about to try to control the merit list to study how to change the calculation rules of the merit list. However, with a sweep of his divine sense, he suddenly felt that someone had entered from the outside. It was his personal attendant. However, he couldn't let anyone see the current ranking of the merit list. The merit envoy quickly put away the merit list and asked, "What is it?" "My lord, the Jade Emperor's envoy has arrived. The Jade Emperor wants to see the merit list." The attendant bowed and reported. Then, he waited quietly for the merit envoy's instructions. Boom! It was as if a clap of thunder resounded in the virtue envoy's ears. The Jade Emperor wanted to see the merit roll, but could he see the merit roll now? The merit envoy didn't know what he should do. However, no matter what, the Jade Emperor had actually sent someone here instead of summoning him with a token. It must be an extremely grand occasion. There might be many people waiting to see, so he had to go. However, the damn merit roll was actually in big trouble now. The merit envoy trembled with fear and trepidation as he carefully followed the Jade Emperor's envoy to the cloudy palace of the Golden Arches. As he walked, his body trembled, causing the merit envoy in front to be surprised. However, it wasn't appropriate to ask him, so he could only tactfully remind him, "Be careful not to lose your manners in front of the Jade Emperor." In the cloudy palace of the Golden Arches, the new Jade Emperor was holding a banquet with his officials. In fact, this was also a celebration banquet for overthrowing the old heavenly court. During the celebration banquet, those who had made contributions would be rewarded, as well as a large amount of merit points. Seeing this scene from afar, the merit envoy's legs almost went soft and he fell to the ground. Even though he was already a golden immortal, he was quite frightened at this moment. It wasn't easy for him to overthrow the old heavenly court. Was he going to be sent to the immortal beheading platform just because he had just taken control of the merit roll and hadn't had time to change the rules? It wasn't easy for him to force himself to pay his respects to the Jade Emperor without losing his manners. However, the Jade Emperor's words almost made the merit envoy's soul scatter. "Merit emissary, show us the merit list. Let everyone take a look." At the same time, Yang Chen's murderous blade had already been raised high. Under the Jade Emperor's horrified gaze, the blade slashed down heavily. Pooh! The sharp blade that had killed tens of thousands of immortals only made a light sound. Then, blood sprayed out, and the Jade Emperor's corpse collapsed softly, no different from an ordinary corpse. The number on the merit roll skyrocketed again, instantly exceeding the display range of the merit roll. The merit roll could no longer be displayed. Just as the merit envoy opened the merit roll, Yang Chen's name flashed on the merit roll and disappeared without a trace. The merit envoy already couldn't help but start trembling. If the Jade Emperor saw that the first place on the merit roll wasn't him, who knew how angry he would be? Just as the merit envoy was about to give up in despair, he suddenly heard the calm laughter of the immortals. Everyone seemed to be very satisfied with the ranking on the merit roll, and they were all leisurely evaluating it. Even the Jade Emperor let out a burst of laughter. It was clear that although the merit points were small, the Jade Emperor was newly appointed and didn't have any more political achievements, so he could easily accept it. Merit Envoy, reward subject XX with 100,000 merit points. The Jade Emperor's voice sounded from high above. The Merit Envoy was stunned. He looked up and saw the name of the Jade Emperor, who was first on the merit roll. As for the jinx-like Yang Chen, he had already flown off to God knows where. The merit envoy's heart trembled. He felt as if he had gone from hell to heaven. "Your Majesty, Your Majesty!" He was happy, but he didn't dare to be slow. He hurriedly controlled the merit roll and noted down the Jade Emperor's reward. Reward subject XX with 80,000 merit points. Reward subject XX with 60,000 merit points. The series of rewards made the merit envoy so busy that he didn't even have time to lift his head. After much difficulty, the Jade Emperor finished bestowing the rewards. In the end, he seemed to be very satisfied with the merit envoy's attitude and ordered, "Merit Envoy, give yourself 1,000 merit points. In the future, the merit roll will follow this rule and can't be easily changed." The first half of the sentence made the merit envoy happy that he had received 1,000 merit points, but the second half made his heart sink. Yang Chen's name once again appeared in the merit envoy's mind. The ridiculously long merit points behind Yang Chen's name also tested the merit envoy's heart again and again. However, he didn't dare to say anything at this time. The Jade Emperor was the only one in the world. His words couldn't be disobeyed. In any case, Yang Chen's name had already disappeared. Would the merit envoy be stupid enough to say it himself? Thinking of this, the merit envoy bowed down and respectfully said to the Jade Emperor, who was sitting on the throne, "This subject receives the decree." Chapter 17. Yang Chen naturally didn't know what had happened in the cloudy palace of the Golden Arches, but the huge amount of merit still shocked him. On the merit ring, a long string of zeros showed how high his current merit level was. However, within the range that the ring could display, there was only a string of zeros and no other numbers. If anyone else saw this, they would definitely think that Yang Chen was just a guy with no merit points. Only Yang Chen himself knew how huge the long string of zeros represented. The reason why there were no other numbers was because it was too long to display. Since the Queen Mother and the Jade Emperor were dead, the old heavenly court had no chance of being restored. With Yang Chen on the immortal slaying platform, there was nothing else to do. After placing the blade on the knife rack, Yang Chen returned to his resting room. After resting for a while, he took off the executioner's heavenly robe prepared in the immortal slaying platform and changed into the mortal world's clothes that he came in with. After tidying up, he forcefully suppressed the churning and joy in his heart and walked resolutely towards the door of the immortal slaying platform. Once the immortal slaying platform was stained with immortal blood or touched something that shouldn't be touched, the door would automatically disappear. However, Yang Chen had been very careful. Until now, the door of the immortal slaying platform was still standing in the same place without any changes. The officials of the heavenly court had to borrow the power of the entire heavenly court to use the dream reversal technique once under the Jade Emperor's decree to choose an executioner in the mortal world. Once chosen, unless the executioner in the immortal slaying platform died, they would never choose again. Since Yang Chen didn't die, then he wouldn't touch the restrictions of the immortal slaying platform and inform the officials of the heavenly court. The Jade Emperor was already dead. In a short period of time, no new immortals would enter the immortal slaying platform. Yang Chen knew this in his heart. After ascending and entering the heavenly court, he had never heard of anyone being executed. When he reached the door, he turned back to look at the immortal slaying platform and the blade. Then, Yang Chen revealed a smile and strode out of the door. The scene in front of him changed rapidly, and suddenly, it turned into a patch of darkness. Yang Chen looked around, but he was still in his shabby house, and it was still late at night. He just didn't know how much time had passed in the mortal world. It was early winter when Yang Chen came out, but everyone in the county seemed to shiver in their sleep. It was as if they felt a chill from their bones, and they couldn't help but hug their bedsheets tightly. The rats and ants that were still moving underground all stopped moving at that moment. The entire county was as silent as a dead city. Many people in the death row suddenly woke up, and their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. It was as if the god of death had arrived beside them, and some of the more timid ones even collapsed. On a distant mountain peak, a fairy-like woman suddenly looked in this direction and frowned. She murmured, "What a powerful killing intent. Just how many lives has this demon killed?" Her figure blurred and disappeared. In the other directions, there were also people who noticed the changes here. The older ones just looked at it briefly, and many people immediately flew in this direction. Looking at their cultivations, some were high, some were low, and they were uneven. As soon as Yang Chen came out, he noticed that something was wrong. In the immortal beheading stage, this murderous aura and killing intent didn't matter, but in the mortal world, this was something that made people crazy. If he didn't solve the murderous aura problem in a short time, he would encounter a few cultivators. If he was lucky, they might understand that he was an executioner and wouldn't do anything to Yang Chen. If he was unlucky, he might directly use the flying sword to kill the demon. He thought that with his own mind cultivation, this little murderous aura was nothing. But Yang Chen didn't expect that he would kill immortals to the point where his murderous aura was exposed. It was really a miscalculation. Three Purities Secret Art. Xianxia suddenly remembered the words of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. The Three Purities Secret Art could refine the killing intent and turn it into spiritual awareness. It was simply a life-saving magic weapon at this moment. No wonder the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord would say that he would be able to use it soon. At the moment, Xianxia didn't dare to neglect. He hurriedly recited the Three Purities Secret Art taught by the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord and began to slowly comprehend the mystery. After a long time, Xianxia sat up and began to cultivate according to the first layer of the Three Purities Secret Art. The Three Purities Secret Art had a total of 9 layers. Even if Xianxia had tens of thousands of years of cultivation experience, he could only cultivate in the order. Originally, Xianxia, who was reborn, had already reached the level of Great Principle Golden Immortal. At this time, although it was the first time he cultivated, he entered that kind of cultivation state in an instant. 3 hours later, Xianxia woke up from his cultivation on time. With a long breath, Xianxia began to slowly check the changes in his body. The Three Purities Secret Art was the key to the Three Purities of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, but it could only increase spiritual awareness and not enhance spiritual power. Xianxia had long been aware of this, but when he thought about it a little, he was still shocked by the changes in his spiritual awareness. Originally, Xianxia had a mortal body and did not cultivate any cultivation method. Naturally, he did not have any spiritual awareness and spiritual power. He had tens of thousands of years of cultivation experience and mind cultivation. But now that he was cultivating the Three Purities Secret Art for the first time, his spiritual awareness had skyrocketed, even catching up to the time when he was about to reach the foundation stage. The effect was so remarkable that it was simply stunning. Even Xianxia himself did not expect that there would be such a significant effect, and he even began to doubt his own judgment under the surprise. But soon he looked at the blood cloud that had become a lot thinner and accepted this fact. Absorbing the killing intent and transforming it into spiritual awareness, it turned out to be this. Xianxia's heart was settled. It seemed that as long as he cultivated for a few more days, these overflowing killing intent would be slowly absorbed, and he would never have to worry about these murderous auras in the future. The sky was already bright. Xianxia walked out of the room and opened the courtyard door, wanting to see how much time had passed. However, at a glance, he found that nothing seemed to have changed, and it was exactly the same as before he left. The scenery on the street has not changed, and even the people have not changed. The neighbors still looked at him very carefully, for fear of provoking him. "What day is it today?" Xianxia directly grabbed a neighbor and asked. Unexpectedly, when he made a move, the neighbor was so scared that he did not dare to move. His teeth chattered for a long time before he squeezed out 2 words, "Fifth." As soon as Xianxia let go, the neighbor seemed to have been granted amnesty. He hurriedly rolled and crawled far away, and did not even dare to look back. The kind of coldness in Xianxia's body made people shudder at a distance. The 5th day. Xianxia was stunned. He didn't even have a day. Everything that happened, was it just a dream? All the life essence that he absorbed was illusory. Chapter 18. Impossible! Xianxia shouted in his heart. Although he had only heard of it in his previous life, if there was no physical body that entered the immortal beheading stage, it was impossible to kill an immortal. Xianxia could conclude this. When he stepped out of the immortal beheading stage, it was completely a physical body, not just a wisp of thought. Moreover, if he was only a wisp of thought in the immortal beheading stage, it would be impossible for him to be the opponent of the killing intent of the immortal beheading stage. Moreover, Xianxia had one of the biggest reliance, that was the vision of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Even if the old man had no spiritual power after entering the immortal beheading stage, his eyesight was not so bad that he couldn't distinguish between thoughts and physical bodies. Since he said that his physical aptitude was excellent, it was by no means a lie. Turning around, Xianxia closed the door of his small courtyard, then walked to the edge of the millstone and took out the multicolored stone. After just a short contact, the multicolored stone shone brilliantly, and the multicolored light was very dazzling. This made Yang Chen really relieved. Everything was not in vain. The killing intent was still very strong. Before killing people today, Yang Chen still had a chance to cultivate for a while and refine some more. Thinking of this, Yang Chen returned directly to the room, continued to sit cross-legged, and began another cultivation of the three purities secret art. At noon, Yang Chen only practiced for an hour in the morning and stopped practicing. The blood cloud became a little lighter, but it was still thicker than old demon Yi's. Fortunately, this blood cloud could only be seen by those who had cultivated with spiritual power. Ordinary people would only feel fear from the bottom of their hearts and would not notice anything. The common people were afraid of the executioner, which seemed to be commonplace in the world and did not cause too much panic. After killing dozens of people hastily, Yang Chen was only told by the seemingly evasive petty official that he would behead Minister Sun's family of more than 300 people tomorrow. He might be tired, so he should be prepared early. Yang Chen didn't care. He strode back home and hurriedly began to cultivate. This time, it was enough for Yang Chen to cultivate from the afternoon until the morning of the next day. Now, Yang Chen was fighting for time. He had to absorb all of his killing intent before those evil slayers dared to come. The reason why Yang Chen chose such a county town was because he had already planned for it. This place was very far away from the various cultivation sections. Even if an expert used sword kinesis flight, it would take at least 1 or 2 days. This period of time was enough for Yang Chen to conceal his killing intent to the level of a normal person. The three purities secret art was worthy of being the secret art of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Yang Chen had only practiced it for the 3rd time. It had only been 4 hours, and it was only the first level of the secret art. However, when he practiced it for the 3rd time, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was enough for him to understand the changes in his body. The thick blood cloud outside, as if it had encountered a strong suction force, rushed madly into Yang Chen's body, and then after a series of changes, joined the increasingly powerful spiritual awareness army. Even Yang Chen could clearly feel the coolness of the blood cloud flowing in his body. The stronger the spiritual awareness, the faster the absorption, which had become a virtuous cycle. But Yang Chen was not happy at all, because compared to the thick blood cloud, the absorption speed was still a little slow. Compared with the spiritual awareness that had increased, Yang Chen was more worried about the upcoming cultivators who were going to get rid of the evil slayers. Yang Chen never thought that without a trace of spiritual power, he would have such a spiritual awareness that was not commensurate with his spiritual power. In his experience, the current spiritual awareness was already the same as when he was in the foundation establishment stage in his previous life. To use silver as an analogy, it was that ordinary people suddenly had tens of thousands of silver, enough to squander for a lifetime. Faintly, it seemed that the powerful spiritual awareness wanted to be divided into 2, which made Yang Chen feel strange. This kind of sign, according to the records of the three purities secret art, should be a precursor to the division of the spiritual awareness. Since it was the 3 pure ones, then the spiritual awareness would naturally be divided into 3 parts. However, that was also something that would only happen when one reached at least the Yuanying stage, the Mahayana stage. How come when he just started practicing, there was this situation? What Yang Chen didn't know was that the division of the spiritual awareness was related to the spiritual power. When the spiritual awareness was strong enough to be a realm stronger than his own spiritual power, it would appear. Now Yang Chen's situation was that he had no spiritual power, but his spiritual awareness had been strong enough to reach the early stage of the foundation stage, which just met this condition. However, the initial signs of division of the spiritual awareness showed that the first layer of the secret art had been cultivated to the extreme, and he could already cultivate the second layer of the secret art. The ultimate goal was the 3 pure ones, which was to be divided into 3 parts, and now there were signs of division. Yang Chen naturally would not stop and continue. However, after completing this round of operation, Yang Chen naturally replaced the first layer of the 3 purities secret art with the second layer of the secret art. As soon as he entered the second layer, Yang Chen suddenly felt the momentum like a whale swallowing. The blood cloud around him seemed to have suddenly encountered a super strong storm and was swept into the body of Yang Chen, and the speed of absorption was at least twice as fast. The feeling of contentment made Yang Chen almost intoxicated. While the spiritual awareness was skyrocketing, the blood cloud was also rapidly weakening. In just a few hours, Yang Chen had absorbed almost 70% of the killing intent. The thick blood cloud had become thin, and it seemed to have weakened to the level of old demon E, leaving only a pink-red curtain. And this thin red mist was also dissipating. While Yang Chen was sitting quietly in all directions in the distance, there were several people flying on their swords, and the flying target was where Yang Chen was. Ha! The girl in white who was flying suddenly let out a cry of surprise. The bloody and murderous aura had rapidly weakened in just a few hours. Could it be that some unknown change had occurred there? Humph! Looking in that direction, the frost on the face of the girl in white did not weaken at all. No matter who you are, you dare to commit such a killing sin, even if you hide in the sky, I will find you and eliminate the evil. Yang Chen didn't seem to know all this. He, who had just stopped, was racking his brains to think of a person who seemed to have an impression of him. It seemed that that person was saved from the execution ground and then sent to the sect to cultivate. Later, he was also a genius of his generation. That person was surnamed Sunday. It was said that he was born in an official's family, and his grandfather seemed to be the current minister. Coincidentally, the one Yang Chen was going to kill tomorrow was the current minister's family, and similarly, the minister's surname was Sunday. Chapter 19. Yang Chen didn't know why Sun Xiangshu's whole family was beheaded, but what he knew was that Sun Xiangshu's birthplace was here. It may be that he committed a crime in the capital, was banished back to his hometown, and then for some unknown reason, was beheaded. When Yang Chen walked out of his small courtyard, after nearly 20 hours of 3 purities secret art cultivation, the killing intent outside his body had become so thin that it was almost invisible. The second layer of 3 purities secret art had more than doubled the speed of absorbing and transforming the killing intent. By the time it was completed, Yang Chen was at most an executioner who had killed a little more people. Although there was still some murderous intent, it was no longer the kind of heaven-defying existence. The first crisis after walking out of the immortal executioner stage finally dissipated quietly. Yang Chen had the upper hand in the race against time, and before those guys who killed the demons appeared, he turned himself into a mortal. Because he only cultivated 3 purities secret art, absorbing the killing intent to refine his spiritual awareness, but there was no trace of spiritual power in his body. Even if the powerhouse of the Jidan stage came over, it was impossible to find the abnormality of Yang Chen. The moment he approached the execution field, Yang Chen saw the familiar face. In his previous life, Yang Chen looked up at the genius of cultivation more than once. But at this moment, the peerless genius was like a frightened rabbit, curled up in the crowd. His eyes looked at the crowd around him, and his eyes showed a deep despair. Sun Xianxia, Yang Chen's previous life, was a true disciple of Blue Cloud sect, the leader of the younger generation, and the genius disciples of several other major sections. Once she was a role that Yang Chen needed to revere, but now she was so helpless, looking at Yang Chen with unspeakable fear. In the surprised eyes of everyone, Yang Chen walked in front of the young Sun Xianxia. At this moment, Sun Xianxia was at most 10 years old. When the little girl saw Yang Chen walking over, she became even more afraid. Her little head tried to shrink into the arms of her family behind her, but she was tied up and couldn't do much. Even though most of Yang Chen's killing intent had been absorbed, what was left was still enough to strike fear into ordinary people. At this moment, standing in front of Sun Xianxia, not only Sun Xianxia, but even the few adults beside her were scared out of their wits by the executioner's aura that Yang Chen exuded. "Don't be afraid, little sister." Standing there, Yang Chen did not get too close. He simply smiled at Sun Xianxia and said, "Don't worry, your whole family will be fine." On the execution ground, a bare-chested executioner with a red headscarf on his head and a huge machete in one hand was exuding an extremely strict killing intent. At this moment, he actually spoke to a few prisoners in such a friendly manner. This was even more shocking than a beggar suddenly taking out his family's wealth. Almost all of the Sun family members who were tied up were surprised. Really, big brother? Big brother? The little girl, Sun Xianxia's face showed a look of surprise. Will it really be okay? The other adults of the Sun family could not help but close their eyes. They seemed to already know their fate. At this moment, the prisoners had already been taken to the execution ground. Only a ghost would believe that the executioner had come to tell them that they would be fine. Only the ignorant Sun Xianxia would take Yang Chen's words seriously. It's true. I'm not lying to you. As Yang Chen spoke, he took the initiative to release his killing intent. He believed that there must have been people who had come to kill demons and defend justice. Although 99% of Yang Chen's killing intent had been absorbed, the remaining portion was released by Yang Chen. Coupled with the continuous strengthening of his spiritual sense, everyone around the execution ground shivered. Even the executioner was a little afraid as he looked at the figure standing in the middle of the execution ground like a god of death. He wondered if he should throw away his life token and leave this damn place before it was time. Almost at the same time that Yang Chen released his killing intent, everyone heard an ear-piercing shriek. At the same time, there was a stern shout. "Demon, don't you dare harm people!" Then, several figures suddenly appeared in the sky and quickly appeared above the execution ground. A few beams of light shot straight at Yang Chen like arrows. However, the moment they were about to touch Yang Chen, all the beams of light either disappeared on the spot or turned around and flew back. Several spiritual senses quickly enveloped Yang Chen. After scanning his whole body once, they dissipated. An executioner? A strange voice sounded. Then, there seemed to be several huge majestic auras in the sky, enveloping everyone around the execution ground. All the mortals below looked up at the sky in horror. "Oh my God, immortals!" Someone finally shouted. There weren't many people to begin with, but now, a large number of them knelt down. The few people who appeared in the sky were all suspended in the air. Apart from the legendary immortals, who else could do this? Yang Chen stood in the same place and didn't move. He looked like he was scared silly. He suppressed his thoughts and didn't release his spiritual sense. However, his face was always facing Sun Xianxia, and he gave her another smile. His eyes seemed to be saying to her, "See, I was right, right?" "Very sure." Another white light suddenly appeared. All the people in the sky seemed to be very polite to the newcomer. The person who just spoke even bowed slightly. When the white light stopped, everyone on the ground was like a fool. Looking at the cold and stunning woman in the sky, they were stunned. Hearing this name, Yang Chen's eyes immediately raised. Very sure was also a young person who was famous in the world when Yang Chen was cultivating in his previous life. She was the pro-disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island and was almost the first person in the younger generation at that time. Unexpectedly, she actually appeared in this place. Yang Chen looked at the frosty figure and looked at the white sword light under her feet that was as white as the white clothes on her body. He couldn't help but sigh slightly in his heart. Xianxia was still exactly the same as in his memory, but that was a memory from 10,000 years ago. At the same time of sighing, he also guarded his spiritual sense, for fear of exposing a little clue. He would be directly regarded as a murderous big devil. Xianxia just nodded slightly at the person who just spoke, and didn't say anything more. She just looked at Yang Chen who was looking up at her on the ground. Fairy sure has never been a talkative person. The people who cultivated knew that, but no one cared about her attitude. Heaven has the virtue of cherishing life. You have killed so much, are you not afraid of heaven's punishment? No one expected that the cold fairy sure would speak to a mortal, but also to an executioner who was despised by the world. Chapter 20. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. This is my duty, and I am only following orders. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yang Chen, but Yang Chen calmly said these words. At the same time, he stared fixedly at Xianxia in the air, without the slightest intention of backing down. Stubborn, this person's murderous sin is extremely heavy, and he is definitely related to the devil we are investigating. Yang Chen's words to Xianxia immediately angered a young cultivator in the air. Xianxia was the idol of countless people. She condescended to persuade Yang Chen, but in exchange, Yang Chen refused to repent. Immediately, a flower protector jumped out and said, "Fairy Shi, let us capture him and carefully interrogate him." Nowadays, there are many cruel people in the world who kill people every day. Among the executioners in the world, which one is not like him? Fairy Shi didn't say another word to Yang Chen. She just casually said a few words to the flower protector, but her eyes were tightly fixed on Yang Chen's eyes. It seemed that the owner of this pair of eyes dared to say those words to her so confidently, which was very surprising to her. Yang Chen's words came from his heart, and Xianxia could feel this. He didn't even answer whether or not he was afraid of heaven's will. But the reason was also very clear. The profession of an executioner was to kill people. You can't say that a conscientious executioner is wrong. Even if it was an immortal, you can say that killing people is wrong, but you can't say that an executioner who is under orders to kill people is wrong. In this world, there is no absolute right, and there is no absolute wrong. In the world of mortals, one must clearly distinguish right from wrong, and one cannot generalize. Understanding this point, Xianxia suddenly felt a burst of emptiness in her heart. In the past, her somewhat stiff cultivation method suddenly broke through all the shackles, and quickly circulated in her meridians. In a flash, the spiritual power circulated in her body, and there were no more shackles that could restrict it. Even if Xianxia was a heavenly genius, she couldn't help but be overjoyed. Now that he had completed his foundation establishment, he could finally consider breaking through to the Golden Core realm. The changes in Xianxia's spiritual power couldn't escape other people's divine senses. Although they didn't know what happened, one thing was certain. It was definitely because Xianxia's state of mind had greatly improved, and her cultivation had also increased. Several cultivators who came to slay demons and defend justice all cupped their hands toward Xianxia. "Congratulations, Fairy." "Thank you, everyone." Xianxia cupped her hands in greeting and then nodded slightly at Yang Chen. She looked at Yang Chen with a complicated expression. Suddenly, she raised her hand and a white light appeared in front of Yang Chen. Yang Chen stretched out his hand and a small pill appeared in his hand. At the same time, what entered Yang Chen's ears was a seemingly cold, "Thank you." Yang Chen didn't say anything, and Xianxia didn't say anything more. Her gaze also left Yang Chen and fell on the body of Sun Xianxia, who was beside Yang Chen. "Little sister, your bones are clear, and your fate is deep. Are you willing to cultivate with me?" Xianxia once again spoke to a mortal. However, the content and the person she spoke to made everyone's heart lighten. It was a little girl, and she was taking her to cultivate. It seemed that Fairy Shi cherished her talent. Sun Xianxia naturally didn't expect such a huge pie to fall from the sky. She, who was 10 years old, didn't even know how to answer this fairy-like big sister's question. On the other hand, the adults beside her had faces full of surprise, and one after another, they agreed. "Willing, my family's Xianxia is willing." "Little sister, are you willing?" Xianxia didn't pay attention to the Sun family's words. She only looked at Sun Xianxia, waiting for her answer. At this time, Sun Xianxia didn't have the outstanding performance that Yang Chen remembered. She only looked at Fairy Shi in the sky with fear, and then looked at the family beside her. Finally, her gaze fell on Yang Chen. It seemed that this big brother, who gave her a few smiles on the execution field, gave her courage, made her feel more at ease than her own family. "I didn't lie to you, did I?" Yang Chen didn't directly give Sun Xianxia an answer, and only said this with a smile. While the others were puzzled, Sun Xianxia understood Yang Chen's meaning. Yang Chen had just said that nothing would happen to her, and nothing would happen to her family. Now Yang Chen was still saying this. Sun Xianxia's gaze still fell on the beautiful fairy in the sky. With Yang Chen's affirmation, she seemed to have gained some confidence. Ignoring the fact that she was still tied up, she shouted at the sky, "If I follow you, fairy sister, will my family be fine?" This question made everyone in the sky burst into laughter. Fairy Shi also smiled, but it was like a beautiful flower had bloomed in the sky, immediately captivating the minds of the surrounding people. Although the famous fairy Xianxia was called by her surname, it also meant that she was a stone. She didn't smile all year round, but in front of a little girl, everyone was lucky enough to see her smile. Xianxia's smile gave Sun Qingxue infinite courage. She bravely struggled to stand up and said to Xianxia in the sky, "As long as my family is fine, I can follow you." If a few cultivators wanted to ensure the safety of a family, even if it was on the execution ground, it was a simple matter. The executioner didn't even have the courage to order to stop them. He watched helplessly as the Sun family was untied one by one, and then followed Xianxia and quickly disappeared from the execution ground. Only when the entire Sun family was nowhere to be seen did the executioner stand up, trembling with fear. After confirming that there were no immortals in the sky, he mustered up the courage to shout at the top of his lungs. The prisoner's family was robbed by a powerhouse from Tiger Head Mountain. A bounty has been placed on their heads. Everyone saw the people in the sky and heard them calling Fairy Xianxia, but no one dared to say anything. Everyone acquiesced in the statement that the strong men of Tiger Head Mountain robbed the execution ground. Yang Chen smiled in his heart. On the way home, all the way, his mind was filled with the scene of the little girl's Sun Qingxue finally thanking him and looking back at him reluctantly. "Big brother, thank you. Big brother, I will come to you when I miss you in the future." If people in his previous life knew that Sun Qingxue of the Blue Cloud sect would say such a thing to him, it was estimated that 10,000 people out of 10,000 would not believe it. But in this life, it has become a fact. The only thing that puzzled Yang Chen was that he remembered that it should be the people of the Blue Cloud sect who came forward to rescue Sun Qingxue. How come this time it was Fairy Xianxia of the Green Jade Immortal Island? Could it be that Sun Qingxue was a disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island and was no longer a true disciple of the Blue Cloud sect? However, whether Sun Qingxue was a disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island or a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect, for Yang Chen, there was no great significance. He had fulfilled his duty as an executioner, and it was time for him to leave. What Yang Chen cared about most now was what kind of cultivation method he should practice, so that he could have the upper hand on the road of cultivation. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.